Hello, and welcome to the Earthly Roots podcast,
where we chat all things gardening, homesteading, and connecting to nature.
We're your hosts, Diane and Robyn.
The Earthly Roots podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
All right.
Another day, another podcast.
Yeah, it's a little chilly today, isn't it?
Completely different day that's very cold.
Exactly. Yeah, we are all rugged up today outside, enjoying the fresh air though, the fresh winter air. And yeah, ready to maybe tomorrow do some jobs out on the homestead and get outside.
For sure. I think the days are getting warmer and warmer, but the winter blues are still around for sure. How have you been feeling the last few weeks? What have you been up to?
Oh, lots. I have been up to a lot. If you follow me on Instagram or YouTube, you'll know that we are busy trying to start a flower farm. So that has been taking up a lot of my time, which is super exciting. And it's like, it is the best time to start a flower farm over winter because you've got a lot of time and you're not worrying too much about other plants and harvesting and preserving, but a lot has gone wrong, which has not made me feel fantastic.
Oh no, well I'm looking forward to listening to your stories because I bet there's more people out there as well listening that are probably maybe not starting flower farms, like that's pretty niche, but they are having those same kinds of problems that you might, where you're trying to do things, trying to establish something that's not quite going to plan as you had hoped.
No, but we'll get there in the end. So yeah, other than that, we've just been getting ready for spring, I suppose. Are you also getting ready and doing some planting or harvesting?
I'll be honest, I haven't started to yet with school only just having gone back on in the last 2 weeks. That's taken my priorities, as well as the bus build and preparing for more meat animals this season. So the garden's kind of been left in the back, kind of to look after itself. So definitely looking forward to finally giving it some love. And now that it's warming up, it's time to get out there.
Yeah, it's past the winter solstice and the days are getting longer, which is making me happy. I do love winter, but I don't know, this one has been particularly hard. I don't know. It is also the first time that we've actually lived this far south. Like we're experiencing the coldest winter that I have kind of ever experienced ever since, we lived over in Margaret River when I was little in Western Australia, which was pretty cold, but this is the coldest that I can really remember.
How have you been adjusting to it? Like what have you done to kind of cope with the cold, or do you feel like you haven't?
Layers and layers. I wish we had a fireplace, but I don't know, we've just been trying to use the reverse cycle aircon. But just making the most of the sun. Whenever the sun is out, I'm like out there trying to absorb it.
Yes. I feel that way too. Our dogs love sunbathing in the sun, so anytime I see them outside soaking it in, I have to join them. And it's actually been really motivating to just go out and join them, at least for a little while, to just lay around, sit around for a bit. And then as you warm up in the sun, you kind of thaw out and you're ready to go get started for the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to know a little bit more about your flower farm. I want to know, what have you started to do? I know this is a bit off track from what we wanted to talk about, but we'll come back around. We'll swing around to the winter blues and how we're feeling. But I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, what are the first steps you've taken? How are you feeling? What problems are you having? Tell us all.
My main problem that I'm having right now is just all of the rain that we've been having. And it's not just me, it's everyone around. I know so many farmers are struggling, but it is seriously just preventing me from doing anything in the garden. Like you can, build your beds up and work around muddy soils, but it's really not great to be gardening in pure mud, which is kind of what I'm dealing with right now. So I have all of these seedlings ready to go and it's time to get plants in the ground, but I've just been prevented by all of the mud that is around, and that's been making me feel kind of a little bit sad and a little bit like, I don't know, like I should be at a place where I'm not. And I mean, I'm always kind of comparing myself, and it's something I try and actively work on about myself, but it is really easy to fall into that kind of habit of looking at what someone else is doing and then feeling bad that you're not there or whatever, which, you know, is totally irrational, but I feel like a lot of us can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, I take a bit of fault in that though as a teacher, because I mean, as students, we are told to compare ourselves to others. As teachers, we tell our kids, like, you know, that kid is sitting really beautifully. Let's all try to sit like that kid. Or I love how this child is working really hard. And so you are in school always being compared to other kids. And so I guess that's where that initial comparison gene or trait comes in from. And I wonder if now you're suffering as a result. So I'm, from all teachers out there, I'm very sorry.
No, it's not you. It's me.
No, but I've been feeling a bit of the winter blues as well, honestly. So the front gardens at our house literally have chickpea plants that hardly sprouted. They have nasturtium plants which are growing pretty well. Broccoli plants that had one little head that was probably smaller than my fist, and that's about it. So it's been feeling really underwhelming looking out there. Motivation doesn't come when you're looking at something that's not growing. So yeah, it hasn't
or
been
after
fun.
like motivation is hard when you're looking at something for, you know, every day. Like when we drove in here, Scott and I were like pointing out all of the things, like, oh, look at the daffodils, oh, look at the strawberry plants and all of the plants in the garden. Like I see something completely different, and I'm sure you would when, you know, you visited our garden. And it's easy to fall back into the whole like, oh, it's not growing fast enough. But when you see it every day, like everything, it's just kind of how you end up feeling. Yeah.
Patience is probably the hardest lesson to learn, isn't it?
Yeah, and as gardeners, we really need to be patient because it's what gardening is all about, waiting and waiting.
Yeah, well, there's some crops, especially that are growing right now, like your onions and garlics, which all the magic is happening under the ground. So even though the plant's growing and it's thriving, and you might see the little bits of green at the top, you're just not seeing the same color that you might in springtime or summertime, which is why I absolutely love that you have a flower farm going, because you're essentially cultivating a garden full of color. And that's what I noticed when I went and visited you not long ago.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I love to add color and flowers and everything like that in the garden, just to kind of, I don't know, increase the biodiversity so that something is always kind of going on rather than, you know, waiting up all until one date or one particular date when everything's ready to harvest, and then it's like, that's the day. I do like to kind of sprinkle different plants around in the garden so that I can enjoy things all year round. I mean, granted, like they all still grow very slowly, and I'm hoping with the flower farm that they're not going to be growing as slow as they are right now. But yeah, I suppose it's going to be something completely different where I'm focusing purely on the production. And I'm hoping, I mean, I say it now, but I probably will. I'm hoping I'm not going to be comparing myself as much as I do with some of the food that I'm growing, because I just feel like there's so many amazing homestead channels, YouTube channels and podcasts and Instagrams out there where you just see like abundance of coming from people's gardens. And I don't have that.
No.
That's like the feeling that I get, but it's so silly. But why do we always feel like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So strange. Have you kind of like in the last month or so felt like that, or?
Oh, definitely. I feel that way every single day. I mean, when I visit friends, when I watch garden videos, especially those up in America and overseas who they have spring and summer, they have the warm growing months. I mean, there's places in the world that have snow or get so cold that growing anything is impossible. But when you compare your own garden to what you have seen it be in the past with abundance, and you know that you can be growing things, it's really hard to, and I think we are our worst critics a lot of the time
definitely.
as well.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, do you think that possibly I mean, you're starting your flower farm from nothing. I know that you've been starting it on grass. You've been covering it up with cardboard. And do you think that starting process of going from nothing to healthy, thriving soil could be the thing that's holding your garden back at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely think so. The soil is the main component where it's slow at the moment, and we also do everything without machines. Like, it's all just hand tools and broad forking the land and, you know, adding soil amendments, whatever we need to add. But yeah, it's slow going when it's just me by myself using hand tools and
you
things
work
like
full
that.
time too. Like, do mention that you're not just out there every day and nothing's happening. Like,
yeah, I'm having a little bit of a break from work, which is going to be helpful just to finish starting the flower farm up. But yeah, it's something that you can't have two full-time jobs. Like, something's got to give. Yeah. And right now, the flower farm was the one that was suffering. But I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just these last sunny days that we were talking about before. I feel like there is a little bit of, you know, mood changing. Yeah. And it's just so seasonal. It's just so funny how, like, I feel like this every year that we have these down slumps and, I don't know, the winter blues and things like that. But I don't know. I think it's a natural. I think it's sometimes we look at it as a bad thing, but maybe it's actually a good thing because it's our bodies telling us, like, we're forced to be rested.
That's right. Yeah. And I love this. I love that even just this conversation right now between us, like, we came into this being like, you know, our motivation is low. Like, there's so much that we want to be doing and growing and seeing in our garden. And sure, every time we're out there by ourselves, a lot of the time, like, you garden by yourself most of the time. I do as well. And it can be really disheartening when you're seeing the problems occurring in your garden, whether it's wet soil, mud, certain pests like slugs and snails in winter are a pain.
Yes.
And then just, I think the lack of beauty of spring and summer, like, we're missing a lot of the bees buzzing around because there's less flowers. We're missing the butterflies and the birds. Even in the last few days, I've noticed the birds coming back into our garden, and instantly, like, my heart is lifted and the joy is back of seeing those little things.
Yeah, I love that. I love being in tune with the seasons and kind of noticing different birds. I think something I used to do, which I really should be doing more of and would like to start doing it again, is doing some nature journaling where kind of like record different species and different birds and insects that I see around, and then you can kind of create your own, like, seasonal calendar.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And
so do you draw pictures or do you write what you see, or how do you observe them in your journal?
Just kind of like have a few prompts, like, what species are you observing? What do you feel like? And I learned a lot of this from, I did Laura Bowen's nature reading course. She's an Indigenous kind of artist, and also she runs a lot of courses about connecting to nature. So that's how I kind of got into that. But yeah, you can just take a piece of paper or in your daily journal or something like that and record what the weather's like, what animals you see, things that you notice around, like what do the trees look like? Are they shedding their bark, or all little things like that? And I don't know, maybe that might be something that might help with my, you know, winter blues to start to notice these things, that spring is on its way. This is not going to last forever. Yeah.
And I mean, winter has its own beauty as well. I bet there's birds and things that come out only in winter, but maybe we're focusing so much on the things that aren't going as we hope they would, that we don't see those things as often because they're that little bit more subtle and quiet.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, because living in Australia, we aren't exposed to snow as much as other countries. And I know that Sam and I have talked about it in the past, but the lack of snow and like that utter cold down here where we are makes it feel like winter isn't quite the winter you hope that it would be as well. Like, it's missing those elements that I would consider to be winter bliss.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I don't know, I have a bit of a European background and I kind of crave that cold winter as well. And it's like sometimes here you're kind of just, I don't know, waiting for something to happen, or I don't know, waiting for it to really get cold and then it doesn't, and then it, you know, it's a bit confusing.
And then you get hopeful that it's going to get warm again and is spring actually coming early, but then it's not.
Yeah, but we're so lucky actually in Australia to have that, and there's so much beauty in the seasons that we do have here, and that a lot of them aren't that cold, but so much is still going on in winter in terms of our native plants and things like that, because not a lot of them are deciduous. We don't really have much deciduous trees in Australia.
Well, if anything, our trees really come to life in winter around here. Like I've noticed the hakea trees just covered in flowers, and the wattle trees are coming to life as well. It really is incredible to see how different trees and plants grow in different seasons. So that's been really cool. So we are noticing the little things.
See, we're coming out positive.
I do like this. This is a good little reflection on the beauty of winter, even though we are feeling like down in the slumps and everything too.
Yeah, and it's a perfect time to start planning. Like I know I've started some plans, and I think you're starting to plan what seeds you're going to plant. Yeah. Have you got anything that you're going to be planting over the next few weeks?
Honestly, I just want to get some carrots growing. I've been trying to grow carrots for months now, and they're just not coming up. They're not germinating. But I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the moment that I can start to plant tomato seeds again.
Yeah, same.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm waiting for tomatoes. Yeah. That'll be good. I'm excited to try growing them down here, because in the subtropics where we lived last, we could only really grow the little ones, the little cherry tomatoes, because it would just get so hot, and we have fruit fly really bad up around Brisbane. So the larger tomatoes just didn't work very well.
Oh, interesting. So they don't grow well in hot weather?
Well, in our microclimate, they didn't love it. We had really, really hot days, and then it'd get kind of cool overnight. It just wasn't the best climate for tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes did well, but just we couldn't grow the beefsteak ones or anything like that. So I'm keen to try that. It'll be good.
Ours definitely grew well last year, but we did have the fruit fly come into effect, and I think that was once summer hit. So springtime, everything was growing slowly. As you're just coming out of winter, things start slow again, but they are growing a bit faster than what we're experiencing now. And then, the end of summer, the bugs come in. Yeah. Those bugs.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing about the winter time and autumn time is it feels like you've only just defeated all of the pest pressure of the end of summer and harvest time, and then all of a sudden you're faced with really slow growth and slugs and snails and wet weather. You mentioned before that you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or a bit underwhelmed, I guess is a better word. So is there something that's kind of causing it, or something that's bringing your mood down?
Yeah, well, I feel like one, it was the weather. Like the weather this winter has been like no other in terms of the amount of rain. And I'm really new to this climate, and learning, it's really overwhelming learning what I should be doing right now so that I don't fall behind in quotation marks when realistically, like, everyone's on their own path in terms of gardening, and it's not, following guides and, how-tos and what you should be doing here and there, and those like planting guides of when to sow seeds and things like that. I feel like sometimes they don't relate to my climate or particularly here. And then it's just so confusing. So then I just don't end up doing anything.
Yeah. It's going back to that overwhelm of when you're given too much information, like what information actually suits what you need.
Yeah. And I find for me personally, when we lived in the subtropics, I was so connected to my surroundings. Like I really was making an effort to notice things like the sounds around me, the birds and things like that. So it was a little bit more intuitive, my decisions. Yeah. And then I seemed to embrace winter a lot more because for a start, winter in the subtropics isn't exactly winter. Yeah. It's the most beautiful time of the year. But down here, like I've for the first time ever really had these winter blues, and I'm just like, I've never really wanted to stay inside and not do much, but I find myself lately I've kind of been doing that a little bit more.
Yeah, which must be really challenging for someone who's so used to being outside during this time of the year.
Yeah, and trying to start a flower farm. It's I can't be doing that in terms of the business world. Yeah.
Had you lived in where you were up in Queensland for a while? Like, had you gardened quite a bit before coming down here?
I not really for 5 years or so, a bit over 5 years I lived there and gardened for a few of those years, but prior to that we lived in the tropics, more so the dry tropics, and again that was a whole different, I don't know, season. I don't know, there wasn't really 4 seasons up there. It was more 2 seasons, like the wet and dry season.
Isn't that so interesting? One country and you're still on the one side of the country, or you were on the opposite side during the tropics?
The same side, just up in more northern Queensland.
Okay,
but yeah, like
just the diversity in weather.
So different, it's so different, and typically, like, you know, we talk about the 4 seasons. It just does not relate to a lot of Australia.
Yeah.
Probably majority of it, I would say. It's only really the southern parts where you do get 4 kind of more definitive seasons.
Yeah.
And the rest is just completely different. So all these planting guides, like, they make no sense.
No, I agree. Areas. Even here in like the area that we live in right now, I have a friend that lives just on the other side of the hills from us, and what's growing in my garden, like even the daffodils coming up at the moment, hers have already sprouted, grown, and are now dying back down to the ground. So we're literally only 10-20 minutes away from each other, and what we're growing is completely different. Did you notice that when you came down from, like, do you remember your experience from moving from the tropical part or the tropics down to the subtropics in Queensland? Do you remember having the same type of feeling of adjusting to a new place, not knowing your place, and what to do?
Yeah, I did. It was a little bit nicer, the adjustment, I suppose. More so, okay, so
you hate living around us.
No. I mean, like, it's easier for me to live down here. I love the cold. Like, I actually really like it, which, you know, is strange being a gardener, but I like more cooler days. But up north, particularly in the tropics, summer is really hard for a gardener, and my feelings were actually kind of switched up there. Like, I was looking forward to winter and the cooler months, and summer was when I had, you know, like more, you know, they weren't too bad, but like I had more mental health problems because I was just a little bit more depressed that I couldn't go outside because you had to have the aircon on.
The heat is brutal in summer around here. I mean, our days are getting upwards of 40, sometimes towards the 50s nowadays.
Yeah, it's like that around everywhere, really. And particularly up north, it's just the humidity as well is really hard to garden. So I realize, you know, we're talking about winter blues, but a lot of other people might relate to having more summer blues, if that's the
summer
thing.
Yellows,
summer oranges. It's totally different, and kind of comes back to the whole, like, just, you know, being in tune with your own environment is super important, because it is really overwhelming to look at all these guides and books and know how you're feeling. But I know there's a lot of, like, I don't know, books on how to deal with your winter blues or ways to get through it. Do you know is there anything that helps you if you're feeling down?
Yeah, I personally don't read a lot of books. I just I wish I read more. Sam's really good at reading, and it's something that I guess I just never trained myself up as a kid to read a lot. But as far as just talking, I find works so well, just because a lot of the time you'll mention to a friend that you're feeling down, or you notice yourself comparing yourself to others, and then when you speak up, a lot of the time there's someone else out there that's noticing your garden in a whole new set of eyes, or are feeling the exact same way as you, and just being able to reflect and open up can sometimes, like, even just this conversation, we came into into it feeling really like a bit down. I mean, we went down, but we were really focused more so on the things that may not have been going well. But already I feel this transition just from opening up and talking of it's not that we're feeling down or unmotivated. It's that we're kind of finding our feet again now that we have relaxed over the winter months, because it's important to relax. It's important to be at home for a while when it's cold, have a break, focus on other things, because if we're constantly in the garden, especially when it's not growing, all we are going to feel is overwhelm.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything inside that you kind of like to do more or around the house in the winter months that make you feel a little better?
Yeah, I tend to do a bit more crafting, I've noticed. So I might pick up my paintbrush for the first time in months.
That's
or
cool.
Start to crochet. Like I always start the winter thinking I'm going to knit a new beanie, and then it comes to the end of winter and I haven't quite finished, but I'm still always hopeful.
Yeah.
Is there anything that kind of picks up your mood?
Baking, eating cakes. No.
That would warm up your house as well.
Exactly. It's multi-purpose. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my happiness and the warmth of the house. But yeah, I love cooking in winter. I love baking cakes and making treats, just things that make me happy, really.
What have you been cooking lately?
Well, I made a date loaf the other day. I do like making date loaves and just other like fruit cakes and more of those traditional kind of winter cakes, because I feel like they're really associated, with Christmas, and Christmas here is in summer. So
yeah, that's funny, isn't it? That
it's
I hadn't
totally
even
reversed.
thought about that, because we wouldn't be able to enjoy those things as much in our Christmas period because it is so warm and hot.
Yeah, so more like the spiced foods and things like that. I try and just remember to have a little bit more in our winter, because, that's when we can enjoy them and get cozy, and
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Bringing in that Christmas spirit in the middle of July.
Exactly. Haven't done a Christmas in July yet.
But you kind of have with the cakes that you're baking.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Have you ever had a white Christmas before?
No, I've never had a white Christmas. We're going to the UK this year, though, at the end of the year. So maybe I'd like to. Yeah, I love snow. Like I feel like when I see snow next, I'm just going to be obsessed. Just like play and do everything in it.
Yeah. Have you seen snow here in Australia? Because it's very different, isn't it?
It is. It's not like everywhere here. It's just dustings. Of snow. It's super pretty, and I love seeing it on all the eucalypt trees and. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's meant to be here some of the time, but it's so beautiful.
And it's so fleeting as well. You see it for a moment and then it's gone.
Yeah, but you've had white Christmases before? Have you lived?
No. I had a trip when I was 21 and Sam and I had only just started dating. I booked a whole independent trip after university had finished, and I was going to spend that time. Wait, no. Not when university finished. I think it was my gap year. I planned a trip in my gap year and I was supposed to experience my first white Christmas. Except what I didn't think about is that I was going to be overseas by myself in Europe in the middle of winter. Yeah. And so that got pretty lonely and pretty depressing, because all these feelings that we're right now having at the comfort of our own homes, in our gardens, around people we love and care about, and around all our things. Imagine those types of feelings, but when you're on your own and somewhere completely new.
Yeah, and the days are really short as well. And
so short.
Having to worry about actually staying warm. And
it got dark at 3:00. So being a single female by myself, I felt really scared to go out exploring on my own. So I think I ended up lasting maybe 2 weeks and I only made it to England. So I wasn't even in the depths of winter. My next destination was going to be Scotland.
Nice.
And everyone kept being like, oh, it's going to be really cold, you're not going to make it, it's really miserable there. And my friend gave me like an extra warm jacket, and I hardly had anything packed because I didn't know what to pack. And so I ended up just scaring myself out of it, flying over to Israel to my family and just seeking sanctuary for the month.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. Oh, well, we're going in the depths of winter, but I suppose we'll see family over in the UK.
And you'll be together. Yeah. There's something very different about traveling with someone as well.
Yeah. And we'll get to see, the real harsh side of winter, I suppose, in Scotland and the northern parts of England, which I'm excited for.
Yeah.
See it all the castles and all the grey days. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be lovely.
It's going to be such a great trip and such a great one to go on to after the last 3 years of not being able to go anywhere.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you going in December? Like, are you going for Christmas?
Yeah, we're going to have Christmas over there, Christmas with family, which will be nice with Scott's sister, and yeah, enjoy all of the Christmas markets.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for those in London, and yeah, so hopefully do a few little country walks to see what it's like in winter in England.
Be
I've had some
inspired by all the
recommendations.
flowers there.
Yeah, well, I suppose there won't be too much blooming at the time, but I can I'll look at pictures at what it's like in summer and spring, and maybe do another visit.
So what are you most looking forward to with springtime coming up? Like, as the days are warming up, what are you dreaming of? What's the thing that is lifting your mood up if you think about it now?
I only just remembered, but Floriade, the flower festival in
yes.
Canberra, we're really close to it this time, so I'm definitely going to go to that.
You've never been there before?
I have when I was a lot younger, but not enough to appreciate it, really. It
Good.
wasn't when I had my gardening streak and garden interest. But yeah, this year definitely would love to go and see all of the spring blooms, and probably again the same thing, excited for all the flowers in my garden in spring.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you mention that as a kid you didn't quite appreciate it as much as you would have liked to, because I distinctly remember my parents like dragging me to things like that, like to garden shows and to sustainability workshops and to castles and museums, and I used to hate it as a kid. Like, I used to think it was such a drag.
Yeah.
While now, like, my mindset's completely different about those things.
Yeah. Now we're going to be like, oh, I've got to get the camera out. I'm going to make a video on it and enjoy it and share it. Yeah. Well, it's time.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to, with springtime, just being able to get my hands into the dirt and feel warmth as opposed to just the cold that is there at the moment. Yeah, even just digging out my potatoes at the moment and seeing the soil finally starting to dry out is really encouraging. And yeah, I want to plant things into the ground that don't take a year to grow, that actually grow in a month or 2 months' time. Yeah.
What are your favourite spring veggies that you'll be planting?
That's a great question. So spring veggies, it goes back to what you were saying. I don't so much know how to follow the how-tos or you should plant this at this time, because it doesn't really work for our climate. We're supposed to be in a temperate climate where we are right now, but it feels subtropical. So I kind of go on the guides and I just plant anything that it says, whether it's going to grow or not, and experiment that way. And then I keep a journal of what grew and what didn't to help me out. So this springtime, I'm looking forward to planting lots of tomatoes, every variety. I've got yellow, purple, red, all the tomatoes. Sweet corn as well. Hopefully I'll be able to plant that soon. More herbs, cucumbers, pumpkins. Apparently you can still grow pumpkins at the moment.
Okay.
Around
That's cool.
here.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, that you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah.
But now's apparently the season to start it. Whether they come up or not, that's the other.
Yeah. Just go look at the compost pile.
Yeah, see what's
That's where
growing
I find
in there.
where all of mine grow. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you only really need one pumpkin plant to really satisfy you for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you? What are you planning on planting?
Well, I think I've got to have a look at my seed stash because
You've got a lot.
I have a lot and it's a really messy pile. But yeah, I'm really excited to grow like snap peas and
Oh, of course.
yeah, and like sugar snap and beans again. We love growing beans, and it was just again like too wet. Like usually we could probably grow some of them over winter. We don't tend to get too many frosts as well, but it was just too wet for the beans, and we'll see how this spring goes in terms of how much rain we're going to have. But yeah, just like
Or if
fresh
any.
stuff. Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. I can't remember what it was called, and jump in if you know what it was called, but this period of time that we're in is supposed to be the wettest we'll have in a while, and then it's going to start drying out again.
Yeah, well, they say we've had a La Nina, but we're predicted it's either 50% whether we'll have another one in spring or not. And maybe by the time this comes out, we will definitely know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got to kind of prepare for both, really. I mean, the ground is super saturated. Like we don't need any more rain.
No.
And for seeds to germinate, they really need that kind of like fluffy, well-draining soil. And I feel like every time we get rain right now, it just sits on the surface because the soil is just so saturated.
They're just drowning.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're going to rot away in there or just get so soaked into that soil with the water that,
Yeah, but I suppose there's lots of other winter jobs that we can be doing, like prepping the garden beds. Yeah, composting, my favorite thing.
Yes, it is.
My favorite. Always composting.
What are some of the ways that you compost? Because I know if people watch you on YouTube, then they're really familiar with everything that you do. But for any new listeners or new viewers, like you've got a few ways that you compost that make it easier.
Yeah.
So share a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I love composting and just kind of anything that has like an open bottom. Like I love composting on the ground so that
straight in.
Yeah, so that worms and microbes and bacteria can really move through the system. So composting in like tubs, or I like to use the tumbleweed compost kind of tub bins, I suppose. But also,
are they the ones that you turn?
No, they're the ones that have like an open bottom and they like sit on the ground. Right. Yeah, and I just find they're good for like residential areas where you might not have space for an open compost like pallet system, which are also really, really good to use. But I find more residential, sometimes there's animals around and worm farming is another thing that we're going to really pick up the ball on that and get a few more worm farms. So that can be kind of our main fertilizer for the flower farm.
You have to be a lot more discreet when you're in the suburbs or the city, don't you? Like you have a lot of neighbors that are potentially close enough that they could have problems, or they just might not like the look or the smell. Not the compost piles. I've never smelt a stinky compost pile.
No, it's just more like other like dogs can get into our backyard sometimes, unfortunately, and other cats, and
they can't help themselves. It smells great.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have to be a little bit careful. Yeah. But yeah, composting is definitely something to do right now, and prepping the beds,
especially with all the leaves around that have fallen over autumn time. A lot of them will have been absorbed back into the soil over the winter with all the rain, especially. And so a lot of what's being left on top can be used in the compost pile without too much significance and damage to the soil. In the forests as well. I really like the direction that this podcast has gone to, but I do also want to be mindful that, you know, we have been feeling the feels, we have been feeling down, and that's a feeling that is okay to have. It's natural, and I don't want to, now that we are talking and we're finding the positivity and looking forward, I don't want to just cover up the fact that we have been struggling the last few months with the rains and the cold especially.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, you know, you can go a darker place if you don't talk about it and you just kind of wallow in it. And I feel like this is where YouTube's really cool, and other podcasting and Instagram, because you can always be seeing something positive if it's, you know, you're looking at the Northern Hemisphere or what other people are going through. And connecting to people is really important when you feel like that, I think.
I agree. Because someone can just make you feel like you're not alone. Yeah. And that's a huge deal. It doesn't seem like a lot to say to someone that you're not alone, or that I feel the same way as you, or I'm also feeling down, but it can really just shift your mindset that, you know, this is normal.
Yeah. All right, so to wrap this podcast up, we might talk about just a few things that we can do just to feel a little bit better with ourselves over the winter. So what is one or a few things that you like to do just to make yourself feel better?
Yeah, so I've mentioned a few of them before, but like just sit out in the sun is a really good start. I always find one little thing that I can do. I find that if I just start, and whether it's like picking up some rubbish or pulling out some weeds in the garden or fertilizing the garden, like if I start with just something that seems so simple and small, a lot of the time it'll help to lift my spirits up, and that's always good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think doing something nice for yourself is really important. Like just like, treat yourself a little bit over winter and, respect your body and that it also needs to rest and, have a little bit of time to recoup over the cooler months. But I think also just having a look in your seat stash and maybe planning out a few beds is also a good idea. So it's something that I'm going to definitely do this weekend, I think. And, while the temptation is there to buy some more seeds, just have a look at your seed stash first.
There's probably things already there.
Yeah, I know that I need to hold back a lot and look at where you've come from. Like look at your garden last year, and it's, if you've been gardening for a few years, you've probably come a long way. Yeah.
That is such a good tip. Just look back at when it was thriving, because it will again.
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
Nice. All right, and on that, I reckon we're gonna leave you guys there. I say it every week, but make sure to leave a comment, a review. It supports us. It helps us know that you're there and connect with you, and grow the community.
Yeah.
Have more conversations. All that good stuff.
Yeah. Let us know if you have any tips on the winter blues over on our Instagram page and over here on YouTube and any podcasting app that you're listening on. So, yeah, thanks so much for listening and watching.
See you guys next time.
Bye.